Good evening, Rink Rats, and hope you're all doing well. Welcome back. We are now on season 6, episode 8 of the Rinkcast, Chicago Rinkcast. I'm here with Andrew Bardo and Sean Fitzgerald. Welcome. We've got a couple hot topics for you tonight. We are going to talk about Bobby Hull. We're going to talk about the trade deadline that is fast approaching. There's some things going around the league, and what does that mean for Blackhawk players? First of all, I want to welcome the staff members. Bardo, Andrew Bard, how are you today, sir?
Doing well. Fantastic. My Chiefs are in the Super Bowl. I'm happy as a clam.
Ready to roll. Excellent.
Yeah, ready.
Let's cheat that on Tom Brady retirement number 2 day. But it'll be the last of them, that's for sure, folks. Everyone knows about Tom Brady. Goodbye, Tom. It's been wonderful. You've been the best, but it's time to move on. Sean, how are you, man? What's going on?
I'm good.
Ladies and gentlemen.
I'm good. I did not wear a Pittsburgh Pirates 70s or 80s hat. I don't own one, but I did wear a Myrtle Beach Pelicans collection hat. So
awesome. So I mean, you got to get one of those like Willie Stargell late 70s Kent Tekulve type Pittsburgh Pirate hats.
I think when I take a trip out to Pittsburgh, maybe to see the Pens or see the Pirates themselves, I'll have to pick one of those up for sure.
There you go. Love it.
For sure.
Love it. Well, welcome, folks. Good to see both of you. And we're going to a little shout out to our sponsor here, puckhockey.com, puckhcky.com. Discount code The Rink for 10% off. $100 gets you a free t-shirt. Pretty cool. Pretty nice Rink Rat wear or something like that. Yeah.
Say that 3 times fast.
Yeah. Wink Wat Wear.
Elmer Fudd has entered the chat.
Who has?
Elmer Fudd is
here. There he is. That's right. I forgot about him, Elmer Fudd. All right, folks. Well, there's a few things going on in Chicago Blackhawk hockey world. The one that hit headlines the most was on Monday. It was announced that Hall of Famer and Blackhawk icon / legend Bobby Hull has passed away at the age of 84. Bobby Hull, my father's hero. I remember he came to a peewee practice of mine, or maybe I was a squirt at the time. I can't remember. But either way, someone who brought a lot of joy to the Chicago Blackhawks and the Blackhawks fans, and one of the best pure goal scorers of all time. The first one to 50 goals, or the first one to over 50 goals in 1966, he scored his 50th and his 51st in the same game against the New York Rangers. My father was there. He's telling me all about it on Monday. He's told me about it before, but obviously revisiting it in light of Hull's passing. The NHL nationally has recognized his passing and what a great player he was as a Hall of Famer. However, Bobby Hull has a past. We all have a past. We all have secrets. We all have things that we are not proud of. There are certain aspects of his life around domestic abuse that came out in a sports century right around the turn of the century, where his wife commented on his domestic violence. He has said some not great remarks regarding Adolf Hitler and certain things regarding some that could be borderline microaggressions regarding different races, he said in the media. So with that in mind, I think that it's been very difficult for Chicago fans to remember Bobby Hull and to think how they want to remember him. And there's certainly those in the Chicago media that were very, very quick to jump on Twitter and say, hey, bad person. And I think that was difficult. It was probably difficult to write. It was certainly difficult for a lot of people to hear. And more or less a guidebook about how some people are supposed to feel about it. And there really is no blueprint to how folks and fans are supposed to feel in this situation. Some of them will remember him fondly. Some of them will write him off as a dark figure in Blackhawks history because of his personal life. And either way, feel how you want to feel, folks. That's what I have to say about it. Bardo, what say you about Bobby Hull and his legacy?
Yeah, I mean, I'm clearly not, well, I don't know if it's clearly, but I'm definitely not old enough to have seen him play live. I did ask my father what he thought, because he's a big hockey fan, and he remembers him as having this ridiculously hard slap shot, just like his son, Brett, who we all saw. I completely recognize the transgressions he has, off the ice. But I guess I will remember him as a guy who was welcomed back to the franchise as part of a group of former players who were sort of exiled from the organization by Bill Wirtz. So when Rocky took over, in 20, was it 08 or whatever it was, ish, he welcomed these guys back, and seeing his big smile, up from the press box, etc. I thought that was, it was great to see, because I try to think of him as the player that he was, and obviously put the other stuff aside. It's not like I'm going to say that I'm going to go and worship him or say he's anything like that. But I was happy. I try to think of the positive in this one situation. So I was happy to see him come back to the organization. So.
Got it. Yeah. Thank you for that, Bardo. We got a comment here on our page from No Roids Just Rage. Thank you, No Roids Just Rage, for joining us tonight. Appreciate it. Thanks for the comment. Comment reads, Mark Lazarus's piece was 100% spot on. If you haven't read Mark Lazarus in The Athletic, good writer. Hawks need to tread carefully next home game. Agreed. Give Hull his 10-second moment of silence and move on. Thank you so much for the comment. And Shawnee, what say you to the comment posted by No Roids Just Rage?
I think he's right in that the Blackhawks definitely have to trend carefully. This organization has been marred by the Kyle Beach scandal of recent years. Say what you will about Bobby Hull off the ice. It just doesn't look good. So you want to just give him, acknowledge that he was a player, acknowledge that he was a franchise great player, say his dues, tap stick, and then move on and get back to playing hockey. Because as we've learned with the Blackhawks recently, the off the ice and not so good things have been associated with this organization, and you don't want to, even though he was one of the greats and things like that, you don't want to bring him back in the limelight for that regard. So, don't meet your heroes is a big quote. Like, just because somebody's good on the field and does things like has an electric shot or something doesn't mean they're a good guy. So,
yeah, I agree. I don't know what you do if you're the Blackhawks here. I mean, we kind of got in a little bit of a conversation online with a group with the folks from the rink and saying, are the Blackhawks going to put a number 9 patch on their jerseys for the rest of the year, like they did with Tony O when Tony Esposito passed away? I was real quick to say
they
yes.
Do that for Makita too?
What's that? And they did it for Makita.
Yeah.
But do they do it for Hull? I don't know. I don't know what's right and what's wrong. I think, I almost feel, at first I thought, they'll definitely do a patch. But now I'm starting to think that I don't know if the blowback is worth it. If you're the Blackhawks right now, especially considering what you just mentioned, Sean, with they haven't exactly been squeaky clean the last few years as an organization. They've fallen on tough times, but they've also made some poor decisions internally. None of those, that Danny Wirtz himself is responsible for, and Danny Wirtz has actually made a very conscious effort to rectify the image of the Blackhawks, and I think he's doing a great job. And I think that this might be a step in the right direction too, as No Roids Just Rage is mentioning. Would love your name at some point, buddy. But the 10-second moment of silence and moving on might just be the way to do it.
I think that's what you have to do.
I think you do.
One thing that while we were talking, I was thinking about, like, do they put something on the ice, like his number, like on the wing that he played on? Is that something they do, even if it's just for one game? And I just thought even that is just still like, you're almost like putting an image on there that you just don't want people to kind of capture or remember. I think you just kind of say something verbally and just let it go. Like let it just kind of, fizzle. So I think that's really it.
And I think Danny and Jamie Faulkner will probably come up with a good plan, or they probably already had something in mind.
Yeah.
Just in case Bobby happened to, pass away, because they want to be strategic. They want to be ahead of this. they want to also, maybe they release a statement saying that we don't support domestic violence in any way, shape, or form, or something like that, to kind of get it out there.
Yeah. No, I would agree. And as Landon, who's writing in, again, thank you so much for your contributions tonight, man. Really appreciate it and your thoughts on this matter, because everyone's got an opinion one way or the other, and unless you sit around and talk it out, you don't get all your cards on the table. But it's so interesting how society deals with certain things. If you look back at Penn State, and Joe Paterno not turning someone in or not reporting something to the proper authorities, lost his job, lost his livelihood, lost his statue. And I think this will actually revisit more questions around, does the Bobby Hull statue still remain? Now, I'm not so sure that removing it right this second is the way to go, but maybe as the weeks, months, and maybe a year passes, and more conversation around this, it might not be the best idea to even have a statue of him out there anymore. I don't know. I don't know. It's very hard, particularly those that grew up watching the Golden Jet, who was always first to give a kid an autograph, would sit around in the cold before the Hawks would get on a bus and sign every kid's autograph until everyone was taken care of. But yeah, and there's something about domestic, nobody's perfect. A lot of people make mistakes in life, but there is something about domestic abuse that does feel different, as far as the sting and how wrong that it feels. And so, I'm not sure the Hawks are in a lose-lose position right now. I don't know how you all feel about it, but if you don't put a number 9 on a jersey, or you don't put it on the ice, it's forgotten about in a couple days. If you go over the top to honor him, I think that's going to linger a little bit longer with an organization that's trying to clean up their image.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I think they have to tread lightly on this one. I think.
The moment Gene Honda says, "Please have a moment of silence for Bobby Hull passing away," and then you move on.
Yeah.
Because what might be telling? What's the crowd reaction going to be?
I don't know.
All of a sudden, "Yay! What's up, man?"
Oh. Sorry, didn't mean to interrupt. Continue, Bart. I'll jump in.
No, I was just saying. I mean, you wonder if there's going to be some sort of a crowd, reaction to it. Is there going to be a protest? I mean, you could. That's another thing. Could there be protests outside? There's domestic violence organizations or anti-domestic violence organizations that could protest. What are the Blackhawks doing? They're even mentioning his name. That's still,
yeah,
not acceptable in our eyes. Meaning that's what they would potentially say. So
yeah, it's a slippery
comments. Are you wearing an anchor because you're going to bring us down, Gate?
Yes. Right, he showed up late.
I'm not bringing anybody down. I like this. Landon, no rights, just rage, man. He's got a lot of great points here.
Yeah, Landon, you're stepping up to the plate tonight, buddy. Thanks so much for
everything I think it's definitely right. They should donate to a domestic violence charity.
That's a great idea. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea.
That would be the best way to do it. So nice. Well, at any rate, as we said, no easy way to handle this. No easy way to remember Bobby Hull for those that were fans. So to those of you that are struggling with this, it's a natural reaction. As I've mentioned before, there's no blueprint to how you're supposed to feel about it. But it is hard to grapple with. Phenomenal hockey player, but had some stuff going on, to say the least.
Yep.
Now something just happened with regards.
Yeah, I showed up.
What's it? Yeah, Gate showed up. Gate just showed up to ruin the party, and
here he comes to wreck the day.
All good stuff from Gate. Great, Gate. So glad that you're here. And actually, we want to talk to you. Let's start with you on this real quick. The Bardo just mentioned that in the NHL, we got a couple things we want to talk about with the trade deadline. One is obviously Bo Horvat is on the move. He is a New York Islander now, right before the All-Star game. No one knows who. Wasn't he supposed to represent Vancouver in the All-Star game, and now he just got traded?
I know they have some jersey.
Yeah, so they're gonna put Bruce Boudreau on the ice with skates on, and
he's gonna wear his jersey inside out or something like that.
Yeah, exactly. But what's more interesting, which could create a domino effect, that just landed in the NHL, and the Bardo reminded us of this right when the show began, is Mark Stone is injured from the Vegas Golden Knights. And he is out indefinitely, and he has struggled with injuries in the past. Vegas has actually had a pretty decent season. And so in the absence of Mark Stone, their roster, maybe getting, dare I say, stale a little bit moving forward since their Stanley Cup appearance in 2018. Gate, you think this is going to have a trickle-down effect? Do you think Vegas might make a splash now? And what does that mean for the market?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, Vegas, they always, they emulate the city, which is, bet heavy and take chances and that whole thing. So they kind of emulate the city that they're in. I think, overall, I think the whole league is going to start moving now that the Bo Horvat kind of pushed them over the edge. Everyone was kind of waiting for the first domino to fall. Now things are going to start falling into place. And luckily for the Blackhawks, there's been a lot. I see Gustav Nyquist is hurt. And there's several players that are hurt that could have been in the same market as say Patrick Kane or Jonathan Toews or whatever, that are now either Bo Horvat has been traded so that, Boston can't get him. Maybe they do go for that Jonathan Toews like you've brought up, So I think things are going to really start rolling here now that like the first domino has fallen. But as far, going back to Vegas, I mean, I think every year with them, it's, it's cup or bust is kind of how they've shown that they're going to go. And they're going to, and don't forget, Robin Leonard has not played for them this year. And that was supposed to be their starting goalie as of last year. So they're going in there with Logan Thompson, who's a guy who's a relatively unknown goalie coming in. And they've had a pretty good year though. I mean, I think last year was kind of a bit of an anomaly and it was more injury based than anything, but I think they're going to be all in. So they could make a big splash. The Bruins, I mean, we're hearing people saying that the Bruins are going to make an enormous splash too. And you can't always count out the New York Rangers of trying to maybe, I'd have to look again where they are in the standings, but they may still try to make a splash as well.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of compression in the standings right now in the West. I mean, there's 5 teams and, 6 points separate them.
The Blackhawks, by the way, are not one of them.
No, I'm sorry. I meant the Pacific. My bad. I meant the Pacific Division. I mean, there's 5 teams in the running for a playoff spot right now. The Kraken
right here, baby,
is leading the Pacific Division right now.
The Seattle Kraken, baby,
with games in hand. With games in hand, they're at 63 points. The Kings are tied with them with 63 points, but they have 4 games in hand on the Kings. So Matty Berniers could run away, probably will run away with a Calder this year.
Yeah.
But he went to Michigan, and college hockey doesn't prepare you for the NHL.
Exactly.
What we learned from one diehard fan in the fall. The Stone thing is one thing, and I want to go to Bardo on another topic right now, which is the New York Rangers. And there was an article in the New York Post that's been getting a lot of notoriety that Patrick Kane is no longer a good fit because it'll take him too long to acclimate towards playing with Zibanejad and playing with the Breadman, and that they should go and get a bottom 6 winger instead. Is this asinine, Bardo?
Yes. 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 It is the dumbest thing I've ever heard. I mean, who are you relying on? Larry Brooks is, he's he has his things, but quite frankly, the Rangers really need another impact scorer on that team. You got Panarin, Kreider's not having the year that he had. Zibanejad is fine, but after that, they need an impact player because, quite frankly, the 3 kids, they're just not consistent. When they play together, sometimes they have a good night, but then you don't hear from them for another couple of weeks. So to me, if you get someone like Kane, then all of a sudden you can put together 2 really, really strong lines up at the top. Sure, a lot of teams that are contenders can use a physical bottom 6 winger. Everybody can. You could find those guys that are a dime a dozen. But to say that is a need more so than Kane is absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, where does a New York writer get off right after the Islanders acquire Bo Horvat, saying, you know what, now Kane might not be a good fit.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's, you can't just respond to the Islanders going all in by being like, let's just watch this. Let's go get a bottom 6 winger from Nashville. That
he even spells out the winger, Tanner Janot.
Who is that? I had to look him up.
A 25-year-old winger with an AAV of $800,000. That's
and quite frankly, the Rangers' expectations are a lot higher following, the fact that their rebuild, went so well. They got to the conference finals last year, and coming into this year, everyone's expectations was, okay, they could be a cup contender. I didn't think they were a cup contender. I thought they were a playoff contender, but I definitely did not think cup contender for them. But obviously the expectations there are high, and so yeah, I mean they've been talking about going big game hunting for a long time. So it's not going to be a surprise if they end up with a Kane or a Timo Meier. Timo Meier is another guy because the Devils are very much pursuing him.
He's going to be a hot commodity.
Yep.
Real hot commodity. So I do want to talk about, Bo Horvat, the Vancouver Canucks, was just dealt 2 days ago to the New York Islanders for a conditional first-round pick, Bolivier. And isn't there one more player in there somewhere? Who am I forgetting?
Yeah, it's a high-end prospect, Aturati.
Got it.
Actually, that player, Aturati, they going into his draft year, he was projected to potentially be the first overall draft pick. His stock fell because he had a bad year out of his draft year, but that's a pretty good player. That's actually it's kind of a sneaky good pickup.
Yeah, he's an interesting one because at this point, people are trying to figure out whether or not he's going to be, if he's going to stay at center, or if he's going to be a wing long term. And also the ceiling for him seems to be as a second line player, but if you're going to bet money on it, it's more likely a third line kind of guy. So I guess they call them middle 6 forwards. But he's a skilled guy. He's not a great skater, but he's got size. So there's upside there.
And let's not forget the pick is top 12 protected, I believe.
Correct. Top 12 protected. Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So, Shawnee, what are your thoughts on the Horvat trade? I mean, they clearly, the Islanders are going for it. They've obviously had a much better year this year. Last year was kind of an outlier for them where, the 2021, the game 7 of the conference finals, they lost to Tampa Bay. And then last year they just kind of fell flat, didn't make the playoffs. Nothing good happened. But I mean, now down the middle, it's Barzal, Horvat, Peugeot, and Cizikas are their 4 centers. That's not bad. That's pretty good. What do you think? Do you think they made the right move? They did give up a lot, but your thoughts, Shawnee?
Yeah, I think if they're going to go all in, they don't know how many runs they have with this group. It's your guy's the coach this year, so they're taking a stab with the new coach, whose name is escaping me. And I mean,
Lane Lambert,
especially in the East, Lane Lambert. They always go big. It's usually an arms race out there. Who's going to acquire more? So they struck first and got Bo Horvat, and now the onus is on the rest of the division to try to match them. As we see in the playoffs, centers are crucial. You need 4 good centers to win faceoffs, to command and drive the play. You need that in the playoffs. So I think Bo Horvat was the right move for them. Plus, top 12 protected. I know it's a first-round pick, but the Blackhawks are tanking right now to try to get a top 3 pick. Sometimes you get lucky, but most of the time your generational guys are outside the top 10, outside the top 3 usually. So
Barzal,
I don't really think they gave up too much. It all depends on the draft too and who's scouting. So right now I don't think it was that big of a deal.
I will add this on that deal. I think the Islanders are like 13th in the conference, and it's a top 12 protected, no less. So it's kind of funny. But I mean, they're on the outside looking in. Their prospect pool is dreadful, and they also are really up against the cap. And they now have, I guess, 5 legit NHL centers, and you wonder if they're going to trade one of them to try to get cap room and maybe upgrade it elsewhere, whether it's on defense or something like that. it's an interesting move also because you get Horvat in his prime. He's 27 years old, coming off a 30-goal season. He's already got 31, so he could legitimately hit 50 this year. So maybe the Islanders found themselves a number one center. You could move Barzal to the number two center.
Yeah.
And if Barzal becomes a consistent 40-goal scorer, he's 27. He's not, he's not old.
They're going to have some decisions to make if Horvat does pan out, though, because he's a UFA.
And they got to sign him.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a big thing.
Right. That's a
you're going to be able to weigh. You're going to be able to weigh this trade by whether they actually really re-sign him or if he's just a rental.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And I think they will re-sign him. I don't
if
think
he's a rental and they're bounced in the second round. Whoops.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then I don't know if that was worth it. So that's interesting. Here's a good question, folks, for that was just sent in by Adam Z80, a good Brooks Bison baseball player who's a Boston Bruin fan who I still keep in touch with. And the question is, where do you Chicago boys want Kane and Toews to go if they go?
Anywhere we can get a couple of or a first round draft pick.
Got it.
What he said.
That's pretty good. What he said.
Yeah. I will take, as I've said many times, the starting offer for Patrick Kane is the Claude Giroux offer, and I will take anything above that, if not that.
Okay.
A first rounder.
Any other thoughts, or just hey, wherever we can get the best return?
I haven't laid this out here on the podcast.
Yeah, lay it out.
I haven't laid this out here on the podcast, but I've been tooting this horn for like about a month now. Now, imagine this: the Blackhawks, they've already got 2 first-round draft picks. One of them potentially is going to be the first overall draft pick. The next one is probably going to be somewhere in the creamy middle towards the end. Say the Blackhawks can get a first-round draft pick for Patrick Kane somewhere in there this year or next year. Yep. They actually have 2 next year as well. And possibly for McCabe this year. They could. We're hearing that possibly there could be another first-round draft pick in there that the Blackhawks could get. If they could package 2 or 3 of those up to move back up into the top 10 for a team that may be a few more years out, that maybe wants to say, hey, I'll take 3 later round players that will fill up my roster down the road, while the Blackhawks get the first overall and maybe something in the top 10, maybe even top 6.
Timeout. First round in return for Jake McCabe.
I've seen that floated.
I mean, Toronto's going to be desperate for a defenseman.
Yeah.
Same with Edmonton.
You can pull that off. Wow.
I've seen that floated out there. And I'm not saying that he's worth it, but if the market dictates what the market dictates.
I mean, I don't they could wait it out and they can end up squeezing someone.
Look at what's his name got in return last year. Who was the guy that traded to Tampa Bay? He just slipped my mind.
Hegel.
Hegel. Yeah, look at what Hegel got.
Now, granted, that was a little different. They got much more, but say, one first round draft pick later in the round, like if for someone who's desperate for a defenseman that's a veteran, they could play in a lot of different situations in the playoffs.
Right.
Yeah,
my point is that you're basically getting a bottom six winger for what they get 2 firsts or
they got 2 firsts for Hegel.
2 firsts for bottom
NHL
winger.
players.
When premium positions are center and defense, and any GM will tell you that.
Yeah, one, Landon, with your comment about McCabe, one is that you might not have to retain 50% if it works out the right way. 2, he's probably a bottom 6 defenseman on a Stanley Cup contender, though. I don't think McCabe is a top 4 guy on a contender.
No. But he bottom 3. You could say he's in the
bottom 3.
4
or 5.
Yeah, bottom 3. But you know who might find Jake McCabe very attractive is the Boston Bruins. Because on that left side, they've got Riley and they've got Grzelcyk. I don't think the Bruins want to go into the Stanley Cup playoffs with Grzelcyk as one of their top 4. Now, I don't know if McCabe can do the top 4 with the Bruins. He probably could if you put him with McAvoy.
Yeah.
But the Bruins are a little thin in the back. There's been
if he
goes talk about, do they take a run at Toews or do they actually go for a defenseman? If Jake McCabe is out there, we know Don Sweeney is epically poor at drafting, so he might be willing to just be like, fine, take the pick, so I don't have to get criticized for another horrible draft pick.
Well, I'm probably going to have to take money.
My whole thing
from
is
Boston.
We'd have to probably take Craig Smith back.
That's fine. Whatever.
It's just fine. Whatever. Yeah.
Take whoever. But I mean, that was my whole thing is like, if Kyle Davidson really wants to make a splash and he's shown like he's made some big moves, controversial moves, like, and he's done it with it, I got to admire that. He's got his plan and he's sticking to it and he's doing what he wants to do.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be awesome wouldn't Blackhawks fans just really love that if they could move up again and get 2 high-end prospects this year? That helps the rebuild. That especially if one of them's Connor Bedard,
Yeah.
Well, one thing I'll bring up about the prospect pool, which I think is interesting. I don't know if you guys are following the Athletics countdown of the top 30 prospect pools. They're already in the top 10. I think they went with 9 today. Blackhawks haven't even been mentioned yet. So whoever is doing, Scott Wheeler, I think, is doing it. They're going to be in the top 8 at least, which is interesting already.
Yeah, I mean, I think it really helps the rebuild if you can. Why hang on to a later round draft pick if you can package those up? Even if you have to throw a player in there or something, like a player that you want to get rid of or off your roster, whatever you throw in there, if you could move up into that top 10 again. Yeah, and you could, and there are players like probably in the 6-7 range that probably any other year would probably be 1 or 2 overall.
Yeah,
this draft is so full of prospects. Do it now while you can. I'd rather go down swinging than not even try at all.
Think about this too, Gate. The team is going to have to spend money next year, so they're going to have to bring in some sort of quality player to augment the roster, anyways. So if you have 2 first-round, 2 top 10 picks, you have money to spend, you could get an above average, maybe a lower ceiling player, or a high floor, lower ceiling player on the free agent market to already accelerate your rebuild, and maybe you're a more competitive team next year, that.
I think that's why I think Max Domi is a fine player for a rebuild if they want to re-sign him.
Sure,
I don't have any problems with that.
I do think we might want to address Landon's point about McCabe at 50% salary retention, and that the rules say that you can only retain.
You can only retain 2 players.
So remember, we got 2 players. We got Kane and Toews that are going to get traded. So the question is, are they not going to retain, or are they going to, find a third team to become like a graveyard? So we have to be careful with that.
And that's why Bardo, I mentioned they've got to take something back.
Don't rule out 3-team trades either. Those are very good ways, cost-efficient ways to save a few bucks, involve a third party. But they're going to have to take something back. I guess, Boston fans want Jonathan Toews. The buzz is they want Jonathan Toews. I don't know if he's right for them. I mean, down the middle, if your top 3 are Bergeron, Krejci, and Jonathan Toews, if your third line is Toews, Taylor Hall, and then you move Charlie Coyle to the wing, that's insanity for your third line. I mean, that's unbelievable. But I think another team to watch who is just on a tear lately is the Carolina Hurricanes. Right now are really playing great hockey.
Yep.
They're climbing and climbing. I don't know. Maybe they might be the one team that might be able to catch the Boston Bruins if the Boston Bruins, they've gone on a slide the last few games.
Well, the interesting thing about them is like Vegas, they could put a big salary on IR with Pacioretty hurt. Going back to Stone has had back surgery just in case any.
So he's done.
Yeah, so he had back surgery out indefinitely.
$10 million.
$9.5 million cap hit that you put on IR, and then all of a sudden they can go big game hunting. Carolina, I don't know what Pacioretty is at, but he's pretty high. But that's a big salary that all of a sudden you can, you make room to get somebody. So they're going to be. I think they're going to be big game hunting too.
Yeah, I wonder when the meeting is. The meeting's got to be coming up with Kane and KD, Bryson.
Yeah, it's supposed to be January, February 1st. What the hell's taking so long?
For all we know, the meeting happened, and they're just mum is the word. I mean, that's very possible. But
are they having the meeting about the meeting?
Yeah, meeting about the meeting. I mean,
we'll continue to have meetings until we find out why nothing's getting done.
Yeah. The Office of Redundancy Office.
I would. I
$7 million, by the way.
Again, but if Kane and the question about where are Kane and Toews, where are they going to land, and do Chicago fans care where they land? Obviously, Chicago fans that care about the rebuild want to maximize the return. But I obviously want them to go somewhere. I'd love to see them lifting a cup. I mean, personally, if they go somewhere, actually where I want them to go is where they go as rentals and we get a huge return, and then they walk away and they come back and sign on the cheap and retire Blackhawks or something.
Yeah. That, and that goes back to Max Domi too. Like Max, we've kind of said this to ourselves, in our own chats, that like Max Domi's a fine player. He's great. He's a character guy. People seem to love him. Sure. You know what? Say, Max, here's the deal. We're going to sit you down. We're going to trade you. We're going to get whatever, first round draft pick, second round draft pick, whatever we get for you. We're going to get some assets for you this summer on July 1st. We'll do you well. We'll give you a 2-year deal or whatever you want to do it at a little more decent number than you had this year. Give you a little bit of a reward for, being a good soldier, and do that. Like you could do that. You could do that with Toews. You could do that with Kane. You could do that with Domi. You could do. You won't be able to do it with McCabe because he's still got a couple of years on his contract. I believe.
I think he's got 3 years.
So
didn't
that's fine.
Winnipeg just do that recently? Didn't they trade? Who did they trade? They traded somebody and they re-signed with them. Didn't they do that in the last few years?
It's happened. I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to happen with all 3 people, but it's a very good possibility if the Blackhawks, if Kane and Toews want to retire Blackhawks, just let us use you as an asset. If you want to retire as a Blackhawk, maybe you guys could go out, you could stretch it long enough to a season where we actually overachieve and we're in the playoffs again in 2 years or something like that. And you get another chance to win your 4th cup with this organization, and then you retire. So, you could frame it to them that way. I overall, I don't care where they go.
No,
replace Scott Darling on the pre and post in show.
Yeah. I'm curious to see if they'll go as
Toby Cohen.
Or if they do go, if they go as rentals or if they're extended somewhere. That I am curious about. Or if that's
that's going to probably be part of the talks, just like with Horvat. Probably you would think that with Horvat, they talked ahead of time, and Lou maybe came up with an extension, and they're probably just putting the final, maybe they'll wait until after the season or whatever, but maybe they have a verbal agreement on this. And that's why they gave him what they gave him for,
Sure.
For that trade.
And if Don Sweeney acquires Toews, he's going to re-sign him. I mean, Don Sweeney trades for somebody and gives him. He might give Toews 7 years. He did it with Hampus Lindholm. So.
Well, that was actually a pretty good. Hampus Lindholm's had a hell of a season. So
really good defenseman.
Yeah, I had another question from from a Boston area source. And I think this is because, Boston is so hot on Spit and Chicklets. But a lot of Boston people that listen to Spit and Chicklets were very curious when they heard about possible conspiracy theory that Gary Bettman will not let the Chicago Blackhawks have the number 1 pick somehow because he's still ticked off about the scandal. I think that's rubbish. I think that's stupid. I think you want money. So you want him in Chicago. Thoughts on that?
You want the best players in Chicago. You saw what happens with Toews and Kane, and how much money that brought the league. You want Toronto, New York, Boston, Chicago. You want those teams to have the best players. Sorry, that's just kind of the way it is. If the best player in the league's in St. Louis, it's not bringing the league as much money as if they're in Chicago or one of the biggest cities.
I think that's crap.
Let's all say it together. The league is better when the Blackhawks are good, and you could put a couple of other teams in that same category.
Yeah,
Rangers,
Toronto, New York, both New York teams.
Montreal.
Gary Bettman, on your 30th anniversary of being NHL commissioner, you are going to let Connor Bedard go to the Arizona Coyotes to play in front of 5,000 people a night for his first.
Well, here's something too. Sean Gentile of the Athletic.
It's Gentile. Yeah.
Okay.
Like Wedge Antilles.
Red leader standing by. The U.S. national TV viewership in the second league's deal with ESPN and TNT is down 22%. 22%. If you put a franchise guy in Chicago, they're all over ESPN and TNT, and your ratings go up. Chicago draws viewers.
Yep. You put them in Arizona, the cap remains flat. The revenue dries up. The collective bargaining agreement, people are going to have to continue to subsidize a fledgling franchise. Thank you, Gary Bettman. You cannot let Connor Bedard end up in Arizona. Don't do it.
I don't want to see people wearing mullets at Mullet Arena with Bedard's jersey. It doesn't make, from a financial standpoint and in terms of viewership, it doesn't make any sense.
No.
It just doesn't. And I get Gary Bettman's an NBA guy because eventually he was from the NBA, but even then, in the NBA, during his tenure there, they rigged the draft for Patrick Ewing to go to the New York Knicks. They did it. And they did it because they wanted a star player in a big market because that's what it helped the NBA overall as a whole.
Yeah.
So,
speaking of kind of, I'm sorry, I made a Star Wars reference, but I'm going to reference it again. We talk about guys sticking around for the rebuild. If you were going to pick that guy for the Blackhawks, that is the Wedge Antilles, just kind of always in the mix, and then he shows up in Return of the Jedi and he's still attacking. And man, he's
red leader.
More important and he gets better and better. Is that Philip Kurashev through the rebuild, or is that someone else?
It might be.
Kurashev?
It might be. He's been playing well as of late. Even
Kurashev's had a good season. Yeah.
He's okay. He's fine.
I have a feeling he's going to be like one of those Sergei Brelin types, that played for the Devils for all those years. And it's like, Brelin's still around on the third and fourth line.
Yeah.
For 10 years, just kind of there. And he's just like, oh, yeah, just put him out there again. But I'm
Yeah,
just
I
trying
mean,
guys staying through the rebuild. He might be one of them. I don't
Maybe.
know. Well, I don't know what you can't.
You still need. You can't have all top 10, top 6, 4 picks.
No, I'm just saying there's going to be a lot of turnover. I mean, maybe he does stick around, but he's probably going to get an offer from somewhere to maybe, move up in a lineup somewhere. And he's not going to be a top. When this team is good, he's not going to be a top 6 forward. So maybe you're going to get a chance somewhere like Arizona to be a top 6 forward or something.
But they're going to have to commit money to some guys to hit the floor. So maybe Kurashev is a guy you give a little bit more money to stick around. And by the time they're good, his contract still isn't impacting you to the way where it's not like Seth Jones's deal where it's an albatross hanging around your neck. But,
I mean, I think Kurashev, you can give him a 2-year deal right now for $1 million a year. I mean, give him a small raise or 1.5, even if that.
Pay him whatever Dylan Strome got. It would be fine.
Philip Kurashev doesn't move the needle for me. So it's like if he's here, great. If he's not, oh well. Like
I'm going to say Luke Philp.
No, I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about Kurashev moving the needle. I'm just talking about cheap labor.
Whether he's just going to hang around.
Might hang around and might make it.
Wedge Antilles was in all 3. It was in the first 3 Star Wars movies and the terrible Rise of Skywalker. So there you go.
There you go. I mean, I don't know what. I mean, Connor Murphy. Unfortunately, I don't know. He's just kind of a guy at this point.
I mean, Hagel 2.0, Sam Lafferty.
Yep. Tim. Now that's an interesting one. I mean, Sam Lafferty could show some interest at the
I mean, I just see him as kind of being a fan favorite. I mean, because he just plays like his hair is on fire every game, puts in the effort, I just think that if you're not going to trade him or if there's no market for him, and maybe they just keep him because he's a guy that's just, that plays.
Today I saw an article about how Sam Lafferty, could be, a hot commodity because he doesn't make a high salary. He's kind of like Brandon Hagel, where he's kind of cost controlled and he is what he is.
Yeah,
he's a third line, digger.
We said this a year ago that Sam Lafferty could be basically Brandon Hagel this time next year, and now here we are almost at this time next year.
I mean, hey, ship them all out.
What is Lafferty net you though? Because I read the article. I believe it was Powers and Myrtle, or it's Powers and somebody from Toronto, and they didn't believe that if Lafferty doesn't, obviously they think Davidson's asking price, like the ceiling is probably a 3rd round pick. But would you move him for a 4th round pick?
Nah, I don't know.
I don't think you do. I think it's a 3rd, or I think if it's a 3rd or bust.
Yeah,
and if you don't get a 3rd or higher, you just roll with him.
Right. I mean, he's under contract for another year. So
yeah, I mean, there's cost control there, and that's good. I mean, and he's a useful player, so I think there's got to be some sort of value there. It's not like you're getting a $1 million journeyman. You're actually getting a $1 million guy who can help your team, just exactly like what Hagel did. So
the other thing that's interesting right now, defenseman wise, as far as guys that are with the club, not in the system. The only ones that are going to be under contract next year are McCabe, if he's still there, Connor Murphy, and Seth Jones. Caleb Jones comes off the book. Jack Johnson's gone. Ian Mitchell becomes an RFA. Some of the Rockford boys. It'd just be very interesting what that blue line is going to look like next year.
That's who's going to stick around the rebuild. Seth Jones.
He's the one.
Because no one else is going to take him.
Yeah, but he's not as cool as Wedge Antilles, though. I don't want to
No, he's not.
Well, I mean, next year, people are saying that Korchinski could be ready. I don't know if Nolan Allen's going to be ready.
I don't think Korchinski's going to be ready.
I don't think so either. He's too.
I think he's going to play. He's going to play at the A.
Ease him in, man. Ease him in.
Del Mastro might be the one that might have a shot at making.
That's a good point. Forgot about him.
He's good. I think Isaac Phillips has done a pretty good job.
Yes.
Maybe he has a shot at making the club. I know I was really high on Regula at one point. I have drifted from that path.
Yes.
It almost seems
Regula.
And Vlasic.
Regula. Huh? Yeah. Vlasic. Yeah. I don't know. A lot of people are worried about Vlasic's tenacity. That he doesn't play hard.
I was kind of hoping he was going to turn into the next kind of Brent Seabrook, big, heavy. He's got no physicality in his game whatsoever for being as big as he is, which is sad.
The next Simone Dennis Papin. Do we remember him?
Yes. Yes, I do.
Yes.
He ended up becoming, I believe, a Tampa Bay Lightning
legend
prospect. Legend after that.
Well, it should be interesting though. The Blackhawks will have a decent chunk of change, and they might spend a little bit on their blue line. I don't know who's going to be out there as a UFA, but you still have defensemen that probably need a little bit more seasoning and developing that are in the system before they're going to be ready to be NHL regulars.
No, I got to think too that in some of these trades, and maybe even if they don't work out at the trade deadline, maybe they'll work out during the summer, that they're going to bring in some bad contracts that they're going to eat, because they got Duncan Keith's capper capture number comes off the books. So they get an extra $4 million off of that.
That sounds
so they're going to have, they're definitely going to have money. So if you want to eat a contract for a couple of years while you're bad,
go ahead.
Do it.
Yep.
Use that to your advantage. Use the cap to your advantage. You could
Is
play
David
this
Clarkson
cap
available
in this
still, or
who?
David Clarkson.
Oh, God.
Clarkson?
Boy, and if you're a Blackhawks fan,
Nathan Horton,
Yeah, if you're a Blackhawks fan and you're listening right now, make sure you enjoy the decline of the St. Louis Blues, because man, are they in trouble.
Oh my God!
With some of the contracts that are about to kick in for them, and Armstrong,
and the players they're going to lose. They're going to lose Tarasenko, and they're going to lose Ryan O'Reilly.
Yep. And then they've got two really big contracts, two $8 million players. Thomas, that's going to kick in, and who's the other one?
Jordan Kyrou.
Those are $8 million. Those two guys make $8 million a year starting next year.
And they're still playing Binnington.
Yeah. Oh man, boy, is he off his trolley.
That's a shit contract too.
That guy goes.
He hasn't hit anybody recently with his stick. That's why.
No, he's like a
wackadoo.
Man, does he go nuts?
He's become a sucky green field.
A wackadoo. Sure, I love that.
He's a wackadoo.
He's a sucky Billy Smith.
But it seems like every 2 weeks there's some sort of Binnington incident where he just totally loses it, chases someone around the rink or swings his stick, and I don't know.
Do you believe dinosaurs are real? That's all I want to know.
If he thinks dinosaurs are real, oh, jeez.
Ilya Bryzgalov did not believe dinosaurs were real.
Yeah. He was into astronomy too. Remember that? Hey,
into something.
So the big question, I guess, is when is some of this stuff going to happen? It feels like for the last 5 months, we've said, all right, sit tight, weather the storm of some really, really bad hockey, and then we'll get close to the trade deadline and things are going to move. So the trade deadline is what? March 3rd? Is that right?
Mm-hmm. March 3rd. I just looked it up.
3rd. Yeah. So here it comes. Bo Horvat was the first domino.
Yeah, I think once you get over the All-Star break hump, that's when really things are going to start cracking down, and you're going to start seeing some moves happen, because they're going to want to get some of these players in there and get them acclimated a little bit. They don't want to just throw them in the last day of the trade deadline, and then it could be chaotic. Like you want to, if possible, if you can get a deal done, you want to get it done as early as possible.
Yeah, and you also see the GMs convening at All-Star.
At the All-Star game. Yep.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that, Bart.
A lot of conversations happening then.
Mm-hmm.
So, well, I guess the only thing that could totally derail this is if Kane and Toews say, no, we're not waiving. So
I'm not worried.
I'm not worried yet.
Yeah,
I'm not worried yet. I just hope that I mean both could really help clubs win, and so let's stockpile picks.
This is like it's the first time since they've signed their deal with the Blackhawks they can decide what they want to do with the next step of their career. Like the ball is completely in their court, so they can decide their future.
And
so,
as of right now, the Blackhawks have in the 2023 NHL entry draft do have currently 2 first-round picks. A probable lottery pick, and then one that will probably be in the late teens or 20s. And then 2 second-round picks. Am I right? I'm not looking at a screen.
Yeah.
But 2 second.
And I think 2/3 too, right? 2/3 also, or just 2 seconds?
Do they have 2/3? I don't know.
I'm gonna check right
I
now.
am trying to look it up right now because I just had it up. They have.
They sure do. Oh
They
no,
sure
one.
do.
Wait a minute. Yep.
No,
Yeah, they
two.
do. From Dallas. Yeah.
They have Dallas's 3rd rounder, and then they do not have a 6th rounder. They have a 1 4th, 1 5th, no 6th, and a 7th.
And then 24, they got 2 1s, 2 2s, and 2 3s
2
again.
3s,
They've got a
and then
lot.
2
They've got a
5s,
lot.
and 2 5s.
They've got a lot of ammo. That's why I'm saying, like,
Damn.
make a splash this year.
17 picks in the next 2 drafts already.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
That's great. That's how you
That's
rebuild.
how you rebuild a system.
That's how you
Stan
do it.
Bowman.
Stan Bowman, are you listening?
Yeah,
Come
no
on.
kidding.
Sometimes you have luck
Oh,
just
he's
signing
crazy.
guys off the street. Jackson.
The student becomes the teacher. We're here with Kyle Davidson.
You got a good
Also,
blueprint of what not to do.
Jackson Staubers won his first 2 NHL starts. They signed that guy as a college free agent. He's a goalie in the system, but that's somebody that they identified, that Davidson identified and brought in. He seems to be working out.
Yep.
It's not just all about the draft. You got to find pieces anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean the
Arvid
bottom.
Soderblom.
Yeah, Soderblom. I'm going to be
Soderblom,
disappointed if by the end of the trade deadline the Blackhawks don't have 3 first-round picks at their disposal.
I agree with
would
that,
be
actually.
upset.
Yeah,
If that
I do
doesn't
agree.
agree.
in some way, shape,
Yeah.
or form, at least.
Package them up, move up the draft. Come on, let's do this, man.
Yeah.
LFG.
And I don't think it
Let's
is
make a
unreasonable
deal.
for the Blackhawks to have 6 or 7 picks within the first 2 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think that's
Yeah.
unreasonable.
I don't think it is either.
It's very,
They're-
very possible.
They already have 6 in the first 3 rounds. Let's get one
Yeah.
more.
And
Yeah,
also,
each of the
let's address this. It's not the same management and the same coaching and the same that ruined players before. This is a whole different regime. So I don't want to hear this. We don't trust them to do what they need to do. This is a whole different.
It's
thing.
different crew. Totally
Yeah.
different crew. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
They
KD.
ruined Kirby Doc. They ruined Adam Boquist. They ruined almost everyone before him. They got lucky with Alex DeBrincat and Teuvo Teravainen. They kind of gave up on early, but other than that, they had nothing. They had
Yeah.
I want
nothing that
somebody
came
to
through the
tell me
system.
how you don't trust them, because right now they're actually, the rebuild is going exactly the way it should go.
Yeah.
The prospect
Right.
pool is so much better than it was a year ago. They drafted well last year. They're stockpiling picks. This is how you rebuild. It's not rocket science.
I mean, they had
Davidson isn't out there saying that Kevin Torchinski is going to be a top 6 defenseman next year. They're
No.
not doing those things. They're not setting guys up to fail
right.
by
Yeah,
creating
they're not,
this
they're,
hype
exactly.
machine.
Yeah, they're not.
Doesn't
They're not doing Ian Mitchell to guys.
Yeah, Ian Mitchell. He should have been a pro last year. Yeah. Oh, should he have? Really?
Yeah.
4 years
Well,
later, where is he at?
Yeah.
Well, perfect
He's
example.
getting
Look
healthy
at
scratched.
Reichel. Reichel had a Hall of Fame game, where he got his bust after the 3-point game that he had, and then they
Yep.
told him to fuck off and send him down. You know what?
Look out!
And-
Oh, yeah.
Look out.
Hey.
Yeah.
Go back and develop. You're not good enough. Good.
I don't
That's
know
what they
if
should.
Or just, hey, we're sticking to the plan. Go back
Yeah,
down
look,
there, do
yeah.
what you're gonna do.
Yeah,
Like, go
Lucas,
have a long playoff run.
Let's win games. Go away.
Yeah, right. Yeah, Lucas, we love you, but don't blow this for us, man. Go back.
Yeah. He's going to be the next Adam Creighton. You watch.
Oh God.
Woo! I love that
reference. All right. Any
Adam Creighton
thoughts on tonight before we declare victory for the evening? Cool.
You guys go first.
I got nothing. I mean, I think we covered a lot. I think good to talk some Hawks, and folks, like, maybe be ready for a quick podcast if there's any movement. You know, you might see on Twitter there's a move, and we might be live that night. So get ready.
Yeah, even if it's not you, Andy, even if he's not available, maybe I'll jump on and get the crew rolling.
Yep.
Just so we can have some kind of reaction to what's going on.
It'll be much more positive than the last time we did it real fast when I had COVID and Jeremy Colleton got fired.
Yeah, but you made the Invincible reference. I'm good now. I'm good. Yeah, boy. Well, actually,
I do want to bring
to celebrate. Huh.
if we're all good, I do want to bring up our other podcast, The Net Perspective.
Net Perspective.
Me and a friend of mine, we're both goalies, goalie coaches, et cetera. We talk about goalie stuff. It's not just Hawks related, it's goalie stuff. We just talk about goalies, from amateurs, kids, all the way up to things going on in the pros. We just got a list of things that we talk about, and after an hour, you know, we're good, but we cover a lot of different subjects. We're having a good time. We're going to try and keep up we haven't been good at the beginning of the season. We've kind of been trying to find our little niche, but as we go on for the rest of the season, we're going to try and do it like every other week. We're going to record probably on Sundays. So Jeremy Burton, he's my co-host, and we're going to have, you know, probably some guests on at some point in time. But last week we didn't. The first week we had the guy from the Uncage, who he's trying to create a new cage for goalie masks that's a little bit different. So that was very interesting. We'll probably have him on back again to see what, you know, he has transpired since then. But if you like goalie stuff, you like goalie talk, it doesn't have to be just Hawks related. Just two goalies talking about goalie stuff. The Net Perspective, you can find it on all the Twitters and all the podcatchers and all that stuff. We broadcast it on our YouTube channel along with this podcast, and so check it out. You know, subscribe. Send us in some questions if you want. Like, it's not just Chicago related. We're covering everything. We talked about Jordan Bennington last time. So
I was going to say, he had to be a topic of conversation.
Yep. We did talk about him. We talked about a lot of different things, you know, that are goalie related. The Jake Ottinger thing with the mask coming off and all that stuff. So we talked about all that stuff. So if you're interested in that, The Net Perspective, go over there, subscribe, and check it out. And you can, like I said, even send us a question. The question, you could email it to us, or you could tweet it to us. But the email would be TNP, which would stand for The Net Perspective, at the-rink.com. Send us an email, and or if you just want to say something, you know, it doesn't even have to be a question. You could make a comment. So that's it.
Why does Matt Tompkins get a bad rap?
Oh, I could do a whole episode on that.
Well, if you do, I would like to be a guest, because I will just have hard-hitting questions the entire time.
Because he's from Ohio State, and that's a shout out to JJ out there if you're listening.
Well, I mean, nothing good comes out of Ohio. Whoa!
What happened to the legend of Ray LeBlanc?
Ooh, that's a good question.
He's right there with Jeff Glass.
I was going to have a Jeff Glass comment here a minute ago.
All right, folks, we'll get into the Net Perspective. It's good stuff if you want to talk goalies, particularly left-handed goalies. We like those better than right-handed goalies.
Or should I?
Shout out.
Wave with the left hand.
Wave with the left hand.
Yeah.
But at any rate, be ready, folks. Things are coming. It's going to happen. Like the Cubs said in 2016, it's going to happen. We're saying that about the trade deadline. It's coming up, and we're going to see some moving parts. And when it happens, when they waive, and when Jonathon Toews and Patrick Kane are traded, we will be very happy because there will be a sizable return, we're hoping. And then we'll be melancholy for moments as we go, wow, they're gone. And we'll do some stuff on their careers as well. So have a good one, folks. I'm Andy Campbell. On behalf of Sean Fitzgerald, the Bard, and co-founder of the Rink, Puck and Hostel, the gatekeeper. Have a great night, and go Hawks. Go Tank Hawks. The tank.